This week, we share our first impressions of the 2021 Chevrolet Corvette, why you might not want bigger wheels and tires on a new car, and what could this smart car with a hitch attached possibly be towing? Find out next on Talking Cars. Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Mike Monticello.
And I'm Ryan Pizlakowski.
And today's episode, we have got a car that's not really perfect for the rainy season that we're experiencing here in Connecticut, but we're hoping it gets sunny and warm soon because we have our 2021 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray Coupe in the fleet. We've all driven it. We've spent some time in it. Good weather, not so good weather, but it's finally arrived. It's been a long time coming, the gestation period from Bowling Green, Kentucky to get it to Colchester. The details on it, we have a Stingray Coupe. We have with the LT2 6.2 liter V8 engines, only engine available. It makes 490 horsepower, but because we have the performance exhaust, it makes 495 horsepower. 465 pounds-feet of torque, 470 because of the exhaust. As you may or may not know, 8-speed automatic dual clutch transmission, which is right now the only transmission, no manual available. Car starts the base model. Yeah, we see the down, but it's not. We'll save that for the talk. Base model starts $59,900, which is about $4,000 more than the previous generation car was in 2019, which is the C7 generation. This is the C8. It's actually bigger than the last car in key dimensions: wheelbase, length, width. Height's the same. Now, we know this car is 2 times or more at the base, the price of an average new car. You know, it brings new performance characteristics. It brings new performance standards. It brings different technology that we're experiencing. But, you know, we are aware, yes, it's not something that everybody can achieve. Also disclose, I have a background with Corvettes. At 6 months old, my parents put me in the back of their 1965 Stingray Coupe and drove to Chicago. My dad used to work at the National Corvette Museum. I have lots of Corvette paraphernalia, like Ron Fellows signed Z06. In fact, my dad bought the Z06 that we tested back in the 2000s. It currently has 151,000 miles on it.
Wow.
Extensive track duty.
That's awesome.
How's it holding up?
The car is great. He actually got new heads from a guy who had to put on performance heads, and they took the heads off his car and they were perfect. So he has, even slightly cleaner, better ones.
Wow. I remember testing that car, and at the time, that was the fastest car I'd ever been in. I mean, at 505 horsepower, it just tickled your stomach when you took off, and it was just it's an amazing car. And I was very fond of it. And years later, he brought it back, and Joe Veselak and I, another tester that we have, he let us drive it again on the track. And
what's wrong with that guy? I would never let you two drive my personal car.
Honestly, we were thinking the same thing at the moment, but we were so grateful, and we didn't harass it, but we got to drive it around the track again and brought back so many fun memories, and what a blast that car was.
I mean, not making about myself, but my dad he's incredibly generous with that car. He has he's done track days when he worked at the Corvette Museum. He ran their track day program. He had GM engineers who he instructed, and he had people who didn't have a car. He would let them drive it. So yeah, that car's got a lot of different drivers, seen a lot of different tracks on the East Coast and Midwest, and it's still going strong. And one day it'll make it back into my garage. At some point it'll come up here to Connecticut and it'll be mine.
I think I like your dad more than I like you, John.
That's a lot of people say that. It's similar. It's you and I are similar like that. Anyway, so what we bought, the 2LT trim for $67,200, added the Z51 performance package, added the Z51 performance suspension with magnetic ride control, GT2 bucket seats, destination charge $1,095, totaled out at $77,680. So again, not cheap. We get it. We're going to jump right in. Ryan, first off, no manual transmission, but pretty good automatic.
A great automatic, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, no manual. I know Monty's upset about that, but it's, you know what? A car like this, when you get inside of this car, you feel like you're driving a Le Mans race car or something, which wouldn't have a manual transmission anyway, probably, right? This this transmission slams gears in a good way. I mean, it seats you. It's actually, I think it shifts even smoother the harder you push it. Just this low speed driving is where you feel it clunk a little bit, but I like that. It gives you a raw like race car feeling, and that's what this car kind of is, right? So I'm not upset about it. And honestly, I don't know, even if they put a manual in it at some point, I don't know where they would fit it, because the console does not allow for that, I don't think.
Well, that's not our fault. That's not our fault they didn't design it right.
I'm just saying, I don't know if I get my hopes up for one in the future, but
maybe we're just going to go,
a gear,
just sequential, just boom, boom, front and back.
I like that. No, I think it's a great transmission. You can put it in regular like touring mode, automatic mode, and it just shifts nicely, quietly. You can scoot through the neighborhood in the morning without waking everybody up. Or you can put it in the track mode or the sport mode, and use the paddle extensively, and you just hammer through the gears, and it's a blast.
Did you miss something? I mean, I know we all like manual transmissions. The car I have in my garage has a manual, and getting into it every once in a while, I was like, okay, make the body kind of remember a manual, because there are none in the automotive fleets today. I mean, it's just so rare. Monty, did it really take that much away from the driving experience?
My pickup truck has a manual transmission. That's all you need to know. Okay, I would never buy a sports car that doesn't have a manual transmission, which obviously is going to affect my chances down the road buying because everyone's gone. And honestly, we could have a whole discussion about this, and maybe we should sometime, but it's all Ferrari's fault, because Formula One racing, they introduced the paddle shifters in their Formula One car, and then they started introducing them into their street cars. And they said, well, it's like half a second quicker around Fiorano, their personal test track, than the manual transmission. So why would you get the manual? Let's see, because the vast majority of Ferrari owners, Lamborghini owners, Corvette owners do not take their car on a racetrack. And even if you did, you're not racing it. You're doing a track day. Therefore, you're still just trying to have the most fun you can, right? So for me, the most fun I can have in a sports car is with a manual transmission. Now, that said, Ryan's 100% spot on. This automatic is very, very good. And the car, other than a few, odd ergonomic deficiencies we can get into, it drives really well. I mean, that transmission, other than being, if you use the manual mode all the time, it's clunky when you're driving at lower speed. But when you're like harder on the throttle, it shifts really smooth. And as Ryan said, you can put it in tour, sport, track, and the automatic has different parameters. And when you put it into those more aggressive modes, the automatic works pretty close to the way you'd want it to work. I think it's still a little more fun to drive it in the manual mode. But I think there's something lacking. I think you got to figure out why people don't want manual transmissions. Why is this happening? And that's, like I said, another discussion we can have. I'm still hopeful that maybe when the Z06 comes out, it's going to have a manual transmission, but it's probably a lost cause for people like me. But that said, the car is a blast to drive even without it. But just think how much more fun it would be with the manual transmission.
And I will say with the Corvette, I don't miss the clunkiness of that 7-speed. Going into 7th, you sometimes caught 5, or, going to 5, coming down to 6, was it 6 or was it 4? And some of the mashing of gear sounds from it, which was just kind of, and again, my dad owned 2 C7s, so I spent a lot of time in C7s. I know that they had those issues.
The positive, I think that's a positive though for this automatic, is this has 8 speeds, and I mean you can cruise on the highway at 65, 70 miles an hour, and you're doing like 1,200 RPM, maybe less. Like it just but that's 8 gears. You can't really have that with a manual. I mean, that'd be a sea of gears.
And it's not lugging it. That I mean,
it's got plenty of power.
It's right there. So let's jump though to what we talked about. So it's mid-engined. Historically, Corvettes all front engine. Yes, maybe some prototypes. In the 60s they talked about making a mid-engine one, but now this is the first one, not a front engine. That will play itself out, I think, on our track time. But Monty, go into some of the ergonomics that's adjusted, because Corvettes have really been great long distance cruisers too, and it changes with this.
Yeah. So as you said, John, I mean, the mid-engine Corvette has been rumored for forever. Since like the 60s. And, if people don't know what a mid-engine, and this is considered a rear mid-engine car. The last Corvette actually, in a sense, was a front mid-engine car. Basically, it's mid-engine if the engine is like toward the center of the car, if more than half the engine is toward the center of the car from either of the two axles. But the most common
Correct.
mid-engine configuration is a rear mid-engine. What that means is the engine is right behind your head, which if the engine sounds good, which this one does sound pretty good, that just adds to the excitement, right? And it also changes the way the car handles. It gives it excellent rear traction, usually fantastic steering, and it has all of that. So, and of course, it also changes the way the car looks. I thought when I heard they truly were doing a mid-engine Corvette, I thought, well, that's wrong, right? Corvettes are front-engine cars. And then you drive it and you're like, I don't care. This thing drives so amazing. The handling is so sharp. The steering is fantastic. And the styling because of the mid-engine. Most exotic sports cars, whether it's a Lamborghini, Ferrari, McLaren, Pagani, just go on and on. They're mid-engine, right? And this one now has that super aggressive styling. People see it. They don't know, especially in bright red like our car. They honestly don't know if it's a Ferrari or Lamborghini, but they're excited and they think it looks fantastic. That said, there's some good ergonomic issues with this car, which is that, mid-engine cars kind of have a sort of cab forward feel to it, because you don't have to worry about the engine ahead of you. So now you've got this, you're low to the ground in this car. You've got a great view forwards. You feel like you're close to the road. That part is great. And actually, now it doesn't have what the Corvette is known for. You talked about like riding in the back of your dad's Corvette. My uncle had a 74 Corvette, and a couple of us would ride in that sort of shelf thing behind the I'm not recommending people do that, but it was, a long time ago, and people did that sometimes.
We did the same. We did the same. So yes, even as teenagers.
Like, think about the C7, right? That has a gigantic trunk. Well, so now you have a mid-engine, right? It does take that away a little bit, but there still is a fair amount of room behind the engine that you can put luggage in, as well as the Targa top, which we can get into later, that can store back there, which is really ingenious the way they did that. And you've got this front trunk, or as we call it, a frunk, which is holds a decent amount of room. So, I mean, you don't have that gigantic thing, but you still have a pretty good amount of space to store stuff.
So I will interject. So the last car, 15 cubic feet of storage, according to General Motors, Chevrolet. The current one, 12.6 cubic feet combined. So it is not, it's not, that's what I was saying, the long distance cruiser, because again, I've taken trips in that C6 and C7, and you could just, it's like it kept eating stuff, it was bags amazing. And helmet bags and chairs and like a pop-up tent and all that stuff. And it's not happening in this car. It's
no, the
just
other
not
problem,
happening.
The problem I have with this, the interior base of this car, like when you're in the cabin, there's nowhere to put the room to put anything. There's no interior space anywhere. I found that to be a little bit of a bummer, but
it's a
the cell phone thing
car.
Is pretty cool though. And I think we got some B-roll of it probably going right now. That you pop it back there and it doesn't float away. It also keeps it out of your hand for playing. Of course, I did forget it in there a bunch of times. I got out of sight, out of mind. So Monty, a couple of the things, the interior feedback, and then Ryan. We want to get on that.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So there's some when you talk about the interior, I mean, the good stuff is the seats. The seats work. We have the optional GT2 seats. This is not what the car comes with. These are really heavily bolstered seats, and they're mostly comfortable. It has adjustable bolsters. It's kind of interesting the way the seat back bolsters work. They don't move in and out. It's more like a pillow that blows up and in and out, which actually I had to move the bolsters to their furthest out settings. I guess I must have giant lats or something because I've been getting And even then, I think on a long trip, it might be too tight for me. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. But beyond that, so it's got this line of climate control functions. It's kind of neat because you've got this really separation between the passenger and the driver. So like it really kept my girlfriend from trying to hold my hand the whole time. She's gonna kill me if she sees that.
It's
but anyway,
really icky when girls do that. Yeah.
So the problem is you have all these climate control buttons, these small little buttons going all the way. So now instead of having like the climate control to kind of down in front of you, now you have to look over to the side, and it's such a long row. It's hard to pick out what you're trying to do quickly while still seeing the road. There's other weird things like the volume buttons on the steering wheel look like you would hit them with buttons with your thumb, but actually instead you have to come behind the steering wheel, hit it with like your fingers, index fingers, and It's just ergonomically weird. And if you said, okay, well, I want to use the volume knob, well, it's kind of way over here around the steering wheel, and the square steering wheel is a little weird too. I'm curious if you guys, because we aren't driving the car that hard yet, because we have to save the tires for testing. I didn't do too much shuffle steering yet, but it is a little weird when you grab like a square part of the steering. I don't know, it's a little strange.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's tell Monty why he's wrong.
Yeah, please. I'm told that
Enough
all the time.
complaints out of him. No, I totally agree with the strip of buttons on that ridge. The console has like kind of a wave to it, and there's like a ridge. And to me, it's going to sound terrible, but it's almost like it was an afterthought. Like they had to put all these buttons somewhere, and that's where it fit. And they're confusing, I think. It's just not intuitive. And then some of the buttons, like the passenger's seat controls are like really low. Not that you need to be touching them, but like you see like theirs are here and yours are up here. And at first you didn't like, well, you got to figure out which ones are yours. And then everything in between is just in a line. So it's not intuitive. I'm sure you'll get used to it, but the steering wheel, I thought it would drive me more nuts. I don't typically like that squared off type of steering wheel, but I didn't find myself, because the steering ratio is tight enough, I didn't find myself, unless you're in a parking lot, really hand over handing, the wheel. I think it'll be better on the track because it'll be even less of that. Assuming we don't get sideways by accident or anything like that and start counter steering, but the seating position I thought was pretty good. The seats are great, but on a long drive, the lower cushion bolsters were a little much for my legs to just relax my legs and just kind of like sit there relaxed. It was pushing into my legs a little bit. But otherwise, I'm 6'2", and I fit in there pretty well. There's not a ton of room. It's very cockpit-like, but I fit in there. Whether this is interior or not, getting in and out of that car is a chore. Getting in it is one thing because you can fall into it. Right. Getting out, you have the sill's real high, super wide, and you literally, like, I put my hand on the sill and do like a tricep dip to get myself up and out.
Hey, get your workout in.
Yeah, but I'm 34 years old. I don't, some people. Older.
He's so old, Monty.
No,
he's so old.
No, he's saying there's going to be older buyers buying this who might struggle more than him.
I can't afford this thing. Never mind. It's going to be an older gentleman or a woman that has the money to buy it. It's going to be a little bit of a workout getting in and out of it. It'll be a little easier when you have the roof off, which we'll talk about, I guess. But you're crawling in there. When you're in there, the floorboards feel like they're maybe 5 inches from the road. You're sitting on the ground.
It's super low.
Yeah.
I brought up early on the dimensions of it because it actually feels, I think, smaller.
Yeah.
It drives absolutely. And feels as if it's smaller than the previous generation.
Yeah.
And I think back to when we had the 911 in the previous generation Corvette, and like the Corvette felt big, and even though the numbers you start looking at, you're like, oh, they're both pretty similar sized cars. The 911 just felt small, and this is to that point. And it's with the mid-engine. It's with the low cowl and low hood. I'm with you on the sills. I use that, the same way of getting out, also to not rub the seat, not to get my feet on the door.
Well, so it's interesting. It's neat that it has a target top, for one thing. And so when my girlfriend and I were trying to figure out how to store it, we read the manual, but it was still a little confusing as to, okay, do we put it in right side up, upside down? How does this go? And it goes in the area behind the engine. And I'm sure we're showing B-roll, as we call it right now, of me making it look more awkward doing it by myself than it actually should. The top is quite light, and it's pretty easy to move but it's just a little awkward to take it off by one person. It really works a lot better with two people, just because it's easier to get it off and then back to the back of the car. But when you put it in the stowage area behind the engine, it just kind of like locks into these two things down at the bottom of the trunk. And then you just kind of click it into these two other areas at the top. And it's like so simple and mechanical. Once you understand it, it's like, well, that's ingenious. But at first it's kind of like, wait, how does this go in there? But it's actually, I think it's actually really neat.
I want to see us do that with some bags and see how the bags,
well, that's what I was thinking. Because now you have that panel in there and it kind of, paint facing you. You don't want to just lay some hard object on that. It's painted. It's a painted panel, the exterior of the car. So you'll be scratching.
Also, the car just sounds so much better when you have that top off. You know what I mean? And without all the buffeting that you get with a traditional convertible, because you've got more stuff around you. You can hear some of the exhaust, kind of like Blatz. There's a tiny bit of decelerative burbling. Someone can say that. Burbling. Which actually, I think I'm a little surprised the performance exhaust doesn't have more of that. And there isn't another exhaust right now that's available. The C7 Corvette had this like dual mode exhaust that could be just like crazy loud, which was just glorious, or kind of normal. And this one, it sounds really only sounds really good when you're really hard on the throttle and going at higher revs. Just around town, it really doesn't burble much. And I wish it was a little more, burbly or something, if that's even a word. Is that a word, John?
Burglary.
Today it's a word.
Yeah. I think that's a soft drink, actually. So Ryan, one of the things you and Monty were talking about is, people came up and were like, oh, is that a Ferrari? Is that a Lamborghini? Like the 95%, 96% of society, it doesn't follow these things passionately like we do. And other people do. You did some research, and one of the big things with Corvette, performance for the buck. How does this kind of match up in some ways, with those other brands?
So the Corvette's always been sort of a performance bargain car in my eyes. I mean, you get a lot of horsepower, just plain horsepower for your money, right? And you mentioned it does. It looks like a Ferrari. People, when I'm driving it, people, look like, was that a Ferrari? And then I think they realize that it's not, and it's actually a Corvette. And then they crank their head even more because this is a big deal, right? And I think the best part about, when I was showing a few friends the car, they're curious what it costs. And it's like, this car was like $78,000. And they're like blown away because, a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, a McLaren, some of these cars are $200,000-$300,000, right? And they're different animals. They have, maybe bigger engines, more horsepower, handmade, blah, blah, blah. But some cars that compare with this pretty closely, a Porsche 911 Carrera S, it's 443 horsepower, starts at $117,000. It's got a 0 to 60 time of 3.5 seconds. Our Vet, they're claiming it's less than 3 seconds. We don't know yet. We haven't tested it. The Audi R8 V10, just the base V10, it has 532 horsepower. Starts at $142,000. 3.4 seconds, 0 to 60. So right in there. An Acura NSX, the new NSX, 573 horsepower. So a little more, $157,000, 2.9 seconds, 0 to 60. That's a lot. There's quite a bit more money on all of those, and probably roughly the same acceleration.
Can I just add something to that too? Is that, I was fortunate enough to have it over the weekend, and I can't tell you how many thumbs up I got. People would roll down their window and say something to you, nice car, great car, and a lot of them you could tell they knew what it was. Other people, would give you the glance back as if they were walking down the street.
So look, as you can see, we can go on talking about this for the entire show. We could do 2 or 3 shows of this. There'll be a lot more on consumerreports.org. First Drive updates the First Drive. Weather gets better. We'll be putting it through testing. So go to consumerreports.org. Check out future podcasts when we have our final test results. And if you're interested in the Corvette, and tell us about your feelings on it in the comments, please. So before we move on, we just want to take a moment of time to let you know about the Talking Cars donation program. If you're not aware, Consumer Reports is a nonprofit. So all the work we do is funded by memberships as well as donations. If you're able to give, it really does help us keep doing the work we do, including this show. You could find more info at cr.org/givetalkingcars. All right, guys. So this week we've got 4 questions, some video and some text ones emailed into us. As always, when you have something you want to ask us, tell us, whatever, send it to talkingcars@icloud.com. Video questions, text, whatever you got, send it in. Our first one is Ben from Ohio. Take it away.
I really appreciate your coverage on electric vehicles and charging, but I wanted to follow up with one thing about the Rivian Adventure network. Turns out that that's only for Rivians, and apparently Jeep is going to do something too. I think this is going to be really unfriendly for EV owners and for EV adoption. I think it's going to confuse people and frustrate people because there's no proprietary gas station for gasoline cars. But I'd like to hear your take. Thanks, and keep talking cars.
Okay, so Monty, I'm gonna throw this one to you because I think it was from your talk. What do you got for Ben about Rivian?
Yeah, so Ben's talking about when we were discussing Rivian and their Adventure Network, which was episode 302. If you folks want to go back and watch that, and Ben's correct that and if we didn't make that clear, we should have that this Rivian Adventure Network is only going to be for Rivian EVs, but they are also in the process of building up chargers around the country. They're also going to have something called what they're calling waypoint locations. And those are going to be for any EV. It's funny because when you think about it, this could be a bit of a problem. Tesla has their specific chargers. Rivian's going to have their specific chargers. So if you have all these EV companies doing their own chargers, like with any internal combustion engine car, you can go to any gas station, Shell, Exxon, Mobil, whatever, and it's going to work with your car. You don't have to worry about, is this specific for my vehicle? So it's a bit of a problem. But just to be clear, Rivian is building these other locations. And I did talk to Rivian a little bit. They said that the reason why they're doing this big buildup is obviously because they want it to be ready for their car when it comes out, or their truck when it comes out. But they say accessible charging is the key to EV adoption, which I'm sure they're, right about that. And one of the goals of the Rivian Adventure Network is to supply Rivian customers with energy in locations and areas or states or parts of states where EV charging is either limited or not yet available. So that's what they're really working on. And that's why they're also kind of doing this kind of unique thing where going after remote areas, state parks, campsites, locations near trailheads. And so that's what they're trying to do. But yeah, it's interesting what's going to happen with all these different electric vehicle companies if they continue to do their own specific charging locations.
True. Yeah, Jeep's going to be doing something at trailheads with for their EVs, correct?
Yeah, they are, correct.
So interesting SD card versus Sony memory stick. We'll just go back to the 90s or so. Our next video question comes from Jackson. So we're going to roll that one now.
So I have a question not for me, but for someone I know. So she is a mom of 2 kids, one early middle school, one elementary school. They are planning on buying. They go on semi-frequent road trips, and it needs to fit a pair of skis. She's between a Model Y, XC40 Recharge, Audi SQ5, and Kia Telluride. I'm leaning towards the Telluride, but I wanted your opinion. Love the show. Keep on talking cars.
And, to that, we'll say welcome back, Jackson. It's a good question. So each of us have our own ideas. I'm going to throw this one to Ryan first. So, Ryan, what's the recommendation that you have?
Well, I want to say one, then I think about it, and I have to say the other. So the Audi, no, it's just, you mentioned skiing, and hauling a family. The Kia Telluride is absolutely wonderful SUV. It's bigger, it's roomier than the others. The SQ5, Audi SQ5 is a fun car, but you're going to have to make sure you have the proper tires on it. I think it comes from the factory with summer tires. You can get a no-cost option for all seasons, but it's a smaller car. So I'm going to say Kia Telluride.
Okay, so size matters and for this one. Size over sportiness. Monty, what works for you?
Yeah, so we wouldn't recommend the Tesla Model Y because we don't recommend the Tesla Model Y. It's not a CR recommended model right now. Yeah, it has a great road test score, but it's it has poor predicted reliability. So that one's out. Personally, I haven't driven the XC40 Recharge, so I can't speak to that. But I would say it comes down to kind of what Ryan said. Do you want a smaller two-row SUV that's super fun to drive? That's the Audi SQ5, 349 horsepower, turbo V6. Or do you want more of a family hauler, three-row SUV that's bigger and is, just kind of drives like a normal vehicle? If you're really thinking about driving fun, go with the Audi. Otherwise, the Telluride is a more practical, roomier vehicle for sure.
Yeah. So the two EVs, I looked at it this way. The Recharge has a 208-mile EPA range, which is very limited. I don't know where exactly the family lives. I don't know if they're going to Jay Peak or they're going to, Butternut on the East Coast, or they're
Butternut
driving.
Basin.
They're driving, all through Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah, or if they're going to a local ski area. But 208 miles is going to be a limiting factor, particularly in the winter. Tesla Model Y, 326 miles in the non-performance version. It drops down around 300 depending on the day of the week. They're constantly making updates. Those two cars are priced similarly, around $53,900 for the Volvo, $50,900 base for the Tesla. Tesla likes to add in gas savings to their prices, but this is what you're paying in cash. The Volvo does get tax credits. Again, like Monty says, I mean, I would possibly say the Model Y I would say the Model Y if you're going for the EV, or the SQ5. If you're a family of 4, I don't know how often you'll be using those third rows, unless you really want to keep the kids' skis in the back of the Telluride, or maybe fold down, have the kids sit on a 60% seat and fold down the other seat so you could keep all the skis inside, then maybe the Telluride. But you know what? You're likely, if it's a family of 4 going skiing, you're getting a roof rack, you're getting a pod. Get the SQ5 if it's more fun, but a little more manageable size. You can fit all the bags in the back. You put a pod on the roof, you're done. It's right size unless everyone's, your kids are 6'2" and, mom and dad are 6'4". I think the SQ5's a fine one to go with, though Kia Telluride, better reliability. That's where we are. That's the answer. Let us know what your friend buys. It would be very interested to hear their decision process on it. Our next question comes Kristen from Queens, who asks, can someone on the CR Cars team explain to me what this smart car would be towing? I mean, am I not giving enough credit to the power of the smart car? So as you can see on the image we have here, Kristen submitted a picture of a smart car with a tow hitch. And we went into our CSI Deep Space Nine, Super James Bond, Bourne Identity computer to enhance, and then enhance, and then enhance. And it looks like something that you get the J.C. Whitney catalog, like that you would stick on. But underneath, it looks like the multi-plug for like a trailer hitch, for the lights and brakes and such. Ryan, what's up with this? Do you tow with a smart car? I mean, I think we know the answer. This is a little interesting. Yeah. What's your thought on this one?
It's very interesting. So this to me looks like something that was put on in a garage somewhere with the good old boys. So the smart car, and at least in the U.S., wasn't rated to tow at all. So you shouldn't tow with it. And this isn't like a 1.5 inch receiver that you could put a bike rack on. This is a tow hitch ball. Now, granted, from what it looks like, it looks a little hokey. I'm going to say that. Could it be attached to something rigid underneath behind that plastic bumper? Sure. Not recommended. And it's pretty comical to look at, though.
So yeah. It sounds like it's a dumb idea to tow with the smart car.
Man.
Drop the mic. Yeah, there we go. We're out. Yeah. While Monty does a parade lap around his living room, look, in Europe, the Smart 4.4, the 4-seater, can tow. In Europe, it seems like anybody could tow anything. They put a camper, a caravan on the back of something. I mean, Top Gear, they go up the Swiss Alps with a smart car to camper. Look, it's not recommended, just like it's not recommended to replace the battery in your Apple phone by yourself or your, whatever.
I tried that once.
Yeah.
It didn't go well. Great. It did not go well.
Look, you can find forums, and I looked online. You can find forums where people say, like, yeah, I tow, and I put this on. And yes, I'm sure physically, mechanically, it can be done. Not recommended. It seems to be also those forums say, good luck with your gearbox, your future of your gearbox by doing that, your transmission. So it'd be interesting to know if it's a fake or a real, but it certainly does look like, to use Ryan's words, hokey. Our final question comes Joe from New Jersey, who says, I'm interested in buying a 2018-2020 Honda Accord. I like the features of the Touring, but hate the 19-inch wheels. Too showy and prone to curbing, rubbing on the curb and getting messed up. Would swapping them for 17-inch wheels affect any of the Touring features like the adaptive suspension? Would dealers be able to do this at little to no cost? So Ryan, our tire expert first, jump in on this. Tell us what he's been giving up or gaining if he does that, or changing.
So a couple things. It's great that he recognizes that it comes with these 19-inch wheels. They can be potentially a pain. I mean, they're more prone to hitting pothole to having pothole damage. They're more expensive to replace. We just did a story on potholes and how a low aspect ratio tire, a tire with less sidewall, is more prone to damage. There's just less cushion there, right? Unfortunately, this Honda Accord only comes from the factory with a 19-inch wheel. So yeah, you could probably figure out a smaller size rim. You could probably go down to a 17-inch rim as long as it clears the brakes. The dealer is probably not going to do that for you. This car was designed with 19-inch wheels from the factory, and we at Consumer Reports would tell you should always stick with the same size, type, speed rating tire that comes on your vehicle. Unless of course if you're putting winter tires on, but in the winter you're driving slower and it's colder, so there's different protocol there. But the beauty of this is he hasn't bought a car yet, and we always tell people before you buy a car to pay attention to what kind of tires come on it, because it could be expensive down the road or just not fit your lifestyle. So unfortunately, I would say you probably should look for maybe an Accord that has the, I know he likes the touring package, but he should look for an Accord that has a more realistic tire package for his lifestyle, as opposed to trying to put on a different wheel and tire on this car. Because again, it was designed from the factory to perform a certain way like that, and you will be changing the handling a little bit. So that's
well, to that point, I reached out to Honda and just kind of like, is he right? Just wanted to make sure, not thinking Joe's got something wrong. He's making a big error, but I wanted to get their opinion on it. And the quote that a Honda spokesperson gave me was, "We do extensive development and tuning for a given model and trim, such as the Accord Touring, including optimizing the suspension settings for the original wheel tire setup. The change noted below would be significant, with a sidewall that would be considerably taller to maintain the same outer diameter, and it could affect a variety of vehicle characteristics, including handling and NVH, noise, vibration, harshness." So to his question, would it affect the adaptive suspension? According to Honda, it definitely would. And like you said, Ryan, you'd have to swap out different tire size and, sidewall heights and such, aspect ratio. So you're not going to get a deal where Joe is going to do this, right, Monty? I mean, it's unlikely to happen.
Yeah, unlikely, and I have nothing to add because I already left on a high note. So if I were to say anything now, I would just hurt my, my street cred.
So we'll come down from the peak and just say, Joe, probably not going to happen with that. It wouldn't really be a good idea. Sorry, it's not going to work out for you. But on that note, we're going to have to wrap up this episode. As always, check the show notes below for more information on what we talked about. Send us your questions, your comments, your reactions, your videos, talkingcars@icloud.com. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Burbling, 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 burbly or something, if that's even a word.